Hey, it's your host, Mark Santiago, and I'm excited to introduce you to the next level of this podcast, Empowered AF 2.0. 2.0. In this next stage of Empowered AF, we're going to dive deeper into what it means to be an empowered man in his most advanced form. I'm talking healthy communication, healthy lifestyle, both physically and emotionally, and evolving into the man you've always wanted to be. So stick around and join me in this episode of Empowered AF 2.0.
We are started live, and I'm excited to be here with you guys talking about something that is near and dear to every man's heart. I'm reminded of the song, golly, I don't even remember who sang it. I know it was a famous female singer, but I'd butcher it. The older guys would probably be like, dude, you don't know who that was? I know her name. I think it's Diana Ross. It said, respect, RESPECT, find out what it means to me. We're going to be talking about that today because, if you really think about you as a man, what you crave more than anything in the world isn't just a woman to love you. You want love, but ultimately what every man wants is respect. And it's really the thing that we crave the most. And I wrote about it this morning, and I've been talking with our Thrive clients about it. And so I wanted to share some thoughts around that today. Respect is that thing that we crave the most. And that's the thing that's always been lacking. And you'll notice that it's lacking in your relationship, especially where you are right now. And a lot of times, and I would say the bulk of the time, probably say 95 to 99% of the time, the reason that respect isn't happening in your relationship is because you don't respect yourself. There it is. That's my thesis for today's episode. It's that if you don't respect yourself, why should anybody else respect you? But look, the minute you start respecting yourself, the minute you start showing up as a man who respects himself with boundaries and doing the emotional work, it becomes an invitation for those around you to begin respecting you as well. I think about my own marriage, in my last marriage, and even really how I show up now in this marriage. But when I think about what happened in my last marriage, I didn't respect myself. I didn't respect myself in several areas, but here are three areas that if you're going, do I respect myself? Why is my wife disrespecting me? Why does this seem to always happen to me? I want you to really think about these things. So here's three areas. Number one area is I didn't have boundaries. I didn't have boundaries. A lot of times guys think that boundaries are about control, and boundaries have nothing to do with control. Boundaries isn't setting a boundary saying you must be home tonight at 10 o'clock. That's not a boundary. That's control. A lot of guys think, well, you can't post pictures of yourself on Instagram. That's a boundary. That's not a boundary. That's control. What a boundary is essentially saying, hey, look, to yourself, I'm not going to allow myself to partake in certain things. So, for example, if your wife is actively cheating on you, you don't just stay where you are. Like, you make a move. You do something. I don't care if you have to, decide, hey, I'm going to move forward with a separation. I don't care what it is that you got to do. That you don't just sit there. You don't just allow her to walk all the fuck over you. In my case, my wife was allowed to do what she want, cheat, etc., because she knew I'd forgive her. Because why? I didn't respect myself. A man who doesn't value himself doesn't respect himself. He doesn't have boundaries. Here's another thing I did. I didn't take care of myself. I didn't take care of myself emotionally, physically. I didn't take care of myself in any way. Why? Because I didn't value myself. What I valued was her opinion above everything. What I valued was making her happy and happy wife, happy life bullshit. Because why? I didn't respect myself. And so if I didn't respect myself, how the fuck could I expect my wife to respect me? How the fuck can I expect her to respect me if I don't do what I say I'm going to do? When my words don't actually carry weight because I make a threat or I say something, but I don't actually follow through. And it's just like your child. If you said to your child, hey, Johnny, if you do that again, I'm going to take your toy away. Johnny does it again. You're like, Johnny, I'm warning you. Johnny, I told you I'm going to take your toy away. And he's like, okay, Dad. And then he does it again. And you're like, Johnny, what is wrong with you? I told you I'm going to take the toy away. And you still haven't taken the toy away. Guess what? You're disrespecting yourself. Your kid is not going to respect you if you don't respect yourself. And the same goes for marriage. Why the fuck would your wife respect you if you don't respect yourself? And here was the third thing. I didn't take care of my emotional wounds. I didn't allow myself to heal. I didn't go through a healing process to deal with my emotional wounds so that I was a stronger man emotionally for my wife, so that I could understand that the manipulation that was happening wasn't my fault, but it was my responsibility. Her affecting me, her cheating on me wasn't my fault, but it was my responsibility. What am I going to do with this? Am I going to just stand for them? Am I going to just allow this to keep happening? Or am I going to put boundaries in my place that say, hey, this is not okay. I'm not allowing this. I'm not going to continue staying in a relationship with someone who continues to do these things and act like it's okay, or act like it's my fault that those things are happening, when in reality, it's yours. It's your fault that these things are happening. My fault is in the responsibility of what I'm going to do about it. And that's for those of you who think that we're always blaming you. We're not blaming you for what your wife did to you. What I'm saying is you still have a responsibility to do something about it. Here's the hard truth, is that as men, we are hardwired to feel respected. We go into the world and we're like, man, you better respect me. I'm a man. You better respect me, right? You see dudes on the street, what's up? You respect, right? Put some respect on his name, right? Like that's a thing in male culture. I saw this, I don't know if it was an Instagram meme or something recently, where it's like the different way men greet each other out in the world. And it's like, if you do this, it's like, what's up? If you do this, it's respect. If and it was like 4 different nods, and I thought it was kind of interesting how they do that. But it's true. It's how we're doing. It's like, what's up? We're asking each other, hey, do you respect me? I'm going to respect you if you respect me. But a man who doesn't feel that, a man who is disrespected, is ultimately a shell of himself. He's a shell of himself. And this is what dudes do, is they find themselves in a disrespected place, which equals disempowerment. And instead of focusing on, well, how can I start to learn how to respect myself? What they do is they go to their wife and blame their wife. They hit the she button, say, well, she's doing this. She's disrespecting me. She's doing that. And she's cheating on me. Dude, she's cheating on you. She's doing these things because she doesn't respect you. I know exactly. It's her fault. No, it's not her fault. It's your fucking responsibility. Because if you respected yourself, you would give her something to respect of you. I think about it. Why do dudes fight other dudes? Because they feel disrespected, right? You look at somebody's side on the street. What's up? What's up? Why are you looking at me, homie? I grew up in the South. It's the way we talked, I guess. But it's all about that disrespect. If a man feels slighted, if a man feels disrespected, he wants to fight, right? He wants to stand up for himself. And sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he gets passive aggressive and he cowers. In a relationship between a man and a woman, if the man feels disrespected, he's either going to fight with his wife and try to domineer her until she respects him, or he basically acts like a whipped puppy, aiming for happy wife equals happy life. She doesn't respect me, so I got to keep her happy. I can't disrespect her by doing this work on myself. I can't disrespect her by spending our money on my work because I need to be a better man. If I disrespect her that way, then she's going to divorce me. Listen, motherfucker, she's already divorced your ass. She's already done it. She's already left you emotionally. And you're still stuck here going, but Mark, if I do this, then she's not going to, no, she's going to respect you because you're finally going to do what you fucking said you were going to do, which was work on you. Your dumbass has been sitting there waiting all these years, and she's been like, bro, I've been waiting on you for years. When are you going to fucking do the work? When are you going to start working on yourself? So I asked my Thrive clients the same thing. I was like, guys, I want to know, what do you see? Especially because a lot of our guys are in the midst of divorce, just like you. They're in the midst of separation. Some are working on new marriages. We got plenty of those. But a lot of guys are going through it, just like you are. And they have that unknown, uncertain future. And I was like, what does respect look like? And some said this. One guy said this: respect for me, divorcing, is being treated like an adult. I was like, that's interesting. To me, it was like, what he's saying was, hey, I want to feel like an adult. No matter what's going on, I don't want to feel like you're treating me like a child. Well, guess what? When you act like a child, you're going to be treated as a child. And this man, in his case, what he started to do was respect himself. And instead of acting like a child, he started acting like a fucking man. Why? Because real men are not disempowered. They are empowered. An empowered man is a respected man. Why is he respected? Because he respects himself. A disempowered man is a disrespected man. He is disrespected because he disrespects himself. He doesn't respect himself. And so if you're looking at your situation, you're going, why doesn't my wife respect me? Because you don't respect yourself. Why does my wife treat me like a child? Because you act like a fucking child. So many women I talk to all the time are like, oh my gosh, I feel like I have 3 kids and they only have 2 kids. Like, what was the third kid? It's my husband. You've heard the joke. It's true. Why? Not because you're an idiot or because you're actually a teenager, but it's because you act like a child. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with men where I'm like, bro, are you ready to do the work? Are you ready to emotionally? And then as we get closer to doing the work, they're like, oh, this, that, the other. And like they start acting like children. I'm like, what the fuck? I thought you said you wanted to be a man. Well, you're just trying to do this. You're just trying to do that. Where does that come from? It's because he's disrespecting himself. He's disrespecting himself. Why? Because he doesn't feel like he can respect himself. He doesn't even believe in his own bullshit. And that's the thing. That's the story. You're all telling yourself stories. We all tell ourselves stories. I tell myself stories. I'm not impervious to this. There are things about my life that always have to change, always have to grow. I'm never done with it. I'm never, ever going to be done with growth because I want to be empowered in every fucking area of my life. I want to live a life of legacy. I want my children to go, man, look how far my dad came. I want my wife to go, wow, look how far you've come. You are not perfect. You will never be perfect, but I darn sure will get the best I can out of everything this body, this mind, this heart, this soul can offer this world because I want to be a valuable contribution to this world. I want the world to be better because I existed, because I breathed into it, because I took life that was given to me and I gave it back to the world. Some of you barely survive. You barely get out of bed. You barely breathe. And it's because you're believing a fucking lie that you've been disrespected by your wife. But it's like, no, dude, she didn't disrespect you until you disrespected you. So if you want that to change, if you want that dynamic to change, you have to respect yourself. I feel like respect and admiration, this is what another guy was saying, in my case would be creating a healthy home life for the children and making sure we're still friendly, supportive, and treat each other like we did when the kids are around. And I asked him, I was like, who's responsible for that? Ultimately, who was responsible for respect and admiration in your home? You are. You are. Why? Because if he respects himself with boundaries, like not getting baited into toxic discussions and situations, like not yelling at her, setting a boundary for himself. I won't yell at her. Setting a boundary for himself. I'm not going to be baited into toxic conversations. Setting a boundary. I'm not going to ask questions about who she's with, what she's doing, all that other bullshit, because I'm so focused on my work. I'm focused on feeling empowered, and I empower myself through this respect, and I do the work to be respected. Guess what? Respect comes naturally. I asked him, I said, dude, do you feel like your soon-to-be ex is respecting you through this process? And here's what he said. Yeah, I feel like she's respecting me through this process now, but it wasn't always the case. And he said early on, prior to when I first joined Empowered Man, the Thrive program, and even in times where we both existed on a cognitive dissonance level, there was definitely some friction, pushing of boundaries, and lack of respect in some aspects. In reflection, it was a lack of leadership, a clear vision, and proactiveness on my behalf equated to the lack of respect. This guy, this is what full ownership looks like. He's not saying that, oh, my wife is so evil, she's so mean, she's this and that, and that's why I can't leave my family because she won't let me. I can't do this because of this. No. He's like, look, in reflection, when I think about it, it was my lack of leadership, it was my lack of a clear vision, and a lack of my proactiveness, which led to a lack of respect. That's fucking ownership. Some of you have got to level up your game. You're like, oh, I want things to change. I want things to be better. I want to have this amazing life. No, you fucking don't. You want to sit in your shit like a pig in his sty. Because until you can come with this kind of conviction, you're full of shit. Full of shit. You're not convinced. You're not committed to the process because you're like, oh, I want that life. It's like the guys who are like, I want six-pack abs. I want six-pack abs. Oh, it'd be so great. And I'm like, cool. This is what it's going to take to get six-pack abs. And you're like, never mind. Why? Because most people don't want to do the work to get six-pack abs. It's an ideal that would be great to have, but they don't want to do the work to get there. They don't want to make the sacrifice to get there. They just want to, oh, well, that's nice for him. And well, his situation is different because his wife is blah, blah, blah. And well, you don't understand what I'm going through and blah, blah, blah. And it's all this victim bullshit. Why are you a victim? Because you disempower yourself. Why do you feel like a victim? Because you don't respect yourself. Why are you a victim? Because you allow other people to victimize you. Because you've been doing it your whole fucking life. And because of that, because of your refusal to accept and acknowledge the ownership of this situation, you stay in your shit. You stay in your stuck cycle of never moving on, of never moving beyond, burying your head in the sand, going, woe is me. Everyone's out to get me. No one's here to help me. No one loves me. Blah, 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 blah. Or you go numb. You go numb, you do the drugs, you do the alcohol, whatever. You do the shit and you just kind of coast through life. And what do your kids fucking see? A man who is a shell of himself because he is disempowered. Why is he disempowered? Because he's disrespecting himself. I love what he says here towards the end. He says, it wasn't until I consistently led and became proactive in prioritizing the transition from the cognitive dissonance to the end goal of my and our mutual path, leaving the marriage and transitioning from our old marriage aspect to a co-parent aspect, was the respect consistently present. Through my leading crucial conversations, setting expectations into the transition between households, setting in my own place, keeping dialogue open and advocating for effective co-parenting, did I allow her to mirror which to model and return the respect that I afforded to her. Wow. Jay, you fucking nailed it on this. I don't think I could have said this any better than you just did, sir. What he's saying there is that, look, when I took ownership and when I started leading, it opened the door for her to respect me. Guys, this is what happens when you own your shit. This is what happens when you stop feeling like a guilty bitch and you become an empowered, convicted man, full of power, full of love, full of faith, full of hope, not fearful of what's going to happen if I do this, not calculating everything because you're a fucking manipulator, but becoming a man who doesn't give a fuck about how she responds to your leadership because he knows that he has to lead himself for his future and that he's hopeful that his kids will follow his example because as he leads himself, so will his children follow, regardless of what his wife is doing, because ultimately vindication is there for you if you lead this kind of life. If you say, you know what? I don't give a fuck. I don't care what she's doing anymore. What I care about is me and my children, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is who I'm going to be. This is the direction I need to go. You feel disrespected right now. You need to look at yourself. You need to look at yourself hard in the mirror and go, where am I disrespecting myself? How am I allowing myself to be disrespected? Because that's where growth fucking starts. Growth starts right there. When you stop allowing yourself to be disrespected and you start to respect yourself through empowerment, through conviction of transformation, of saying enough is enough. I'm going to take fucking full ownership of my shit and move forward, regardless of what is the outcome, regardless if I lose all my fucking money in my divorce. Guys, I lost my Tesla. I lost all kinds of shit in my divorce, but I knew that if I needed to respect myself, I was willing to do it. And guess what? I've got an even better car. I've got a better house. I've got a better wife. Fuck, my whole financial world just skyrocketed from a sub 500 credit score to a 700 credit score within 2 years. Why? Because I did the fucking work. It doesn't just magically appear. You don't just get to be a guy with six-pack abs. You don't just get to be who you want to be without fucking investing in yourself. And too many are just sitting on the sidelines, afraid of what she's going to do, afraid of the outcome, afraid of the uncertainty. Why? Because you're still little boys. You're still sitting there in your little diaper, waiting for mommy to come home and wipe your little tushy. And that ain't fucking reality, dude. It ain't fucking reality. Your children are looking at you and saying, Dad, when are you going to take this diaper off? When are you going to start acting like a man? Because right now, you're disrespecting yourself. When you lose your shit on your ex-wife and you yell at her and you scream at her, when you track her with your GPS, when you follow her, when you try to do all the shit you've been doing, you're disrespecting yourself. And no fucking woman wants to be with a man that does that. Guys, I did it. I have lived the disempowered life. I did all the shit. I was a victim of my own circumstances. I was a victim of my mentality. I was woe is me. How could she do this to me? I was this great husband. I was the blah, blah, blah. It doesn't fucking matter. What matters is I decided I wanted to become an empowered man through that process. And I went after that. And it's a sacrifice and it hurts. And it's financial, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's physical. It's all those things together because that's what being a real man is. A leader makes decisions. He is decisive. He's not a chicken shit. All this ghosting stuff men do these days, what the fuck? You're having a conversation with somebody and you hang up on somebody, what the fuck? Why? Because you have no grid for emotional healing. You have no grid for dealing with conflict. And so therefore you avoid, you push away, you avoid. Why? Because you feel disrespected. When somebody brings truth to you, you feel disrespected. Why? Because you've disrespected yourself. Brother, I'm here to tell you that if you want to live an empowered life, you've got to start respecting yourself. That's all I got to say for you guys. Have a good one.
Hey, thanks again for joining us on this episode of Empowered AF 2.0. If you're new here, thanks for checking out this episode. And I encourage you to take a visit back to the first episodes in this podcast. Look, we have over 50 episodes on the foundations of how to be an empowered man. I'm talking about in your relationship with your wife, your kids, your work, your boss, whoever and whomever. And I highly suggest you take some time to listen and gain some insight and knowledge from those episodes. And hey, if you want to connect with me deeper, be sure to check out the Empowered Man group. That's empoweredman.co/group. empoweredman.co/group for latest information and to join our group of other men who are wanting to be empowered just like you. Until then, this is Mark signing off, Empowered AF 2.0.